Hello there, guys. Today, we're talking about the books. Everyone say hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
The books!
For some reason, our ASMR voices are with a different accent.
British people are relaxing to listen to.
No, they aren't.
That was in the first 30 seconds, Cry. I'm gonna have to censor that now. I have to censor that now. That was in the first 30.
Shit. Alright, whatever. That'll make it funnier, trust.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right.
Father,
Hello,
it's
everybody.
me,
Oh,
Michael.
Micah.
Father,
Is that what
it's
he
me,
was going
Michael.
for? Michael was going for an ASMR voice?
I don't know what
Right
you were
where you
going
said
for.
it would be.
He starts like tapping his phone screen.
Right where you said it would be.
Hello, father. He's doing like
Super
kicks.
ASMR.
Anyway, books. We like books. Very not controversial subject, by the way.
Yeah, this is the most calm topic in all
Not
of FNAF.
controversial.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Where do we even start with this?
Let's see. Okay, so I put MatPat in the thumbnail for maximum bait.
Oh, okay, good.
And let's talk about
So
math.
we can start with what Matthew Patrick originally said about the books, which was that
Yes.
well, first he got
We get to
canceled
talk
originally.
We
Wait,
get to talk
yes.
about parallels,
Yeah.
dude.
Way back in the day, MatPat was like, I want to use the books to help solve the games, and everyone was like, no, MatPat, please don't use the books, they're mid. Then eventually,
Because
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I wonder if back then he also came to the conclusion that it is building off of the games. And so that's why he just initially thought that it was different from the Silver Eyes, and that's why he treated it differently. And that it was only when he started getting into the books and saw the reaction from that video, from those videos back then, when he tried to use them and said, oh, you know, the Scrap Rabbit, it's a real thing that exists in the FNAF universe. And everyone was like, no, it's not. And he just,
And now
he
they
just
think
stopped.
it is.
He's like, okay, well, I have to learn how to use these in a better way because clearly the community does not want them to be in universe. So maybe Scott didn't want them to be in universe.
And something changed along the way.
Very good. All right. And then, so yeah, the latest thing I remember people freaking out about from the game theory thing was Tom, because he made his newest video, not newest, but like a new video in the FNAF like game theory series. Basically said a whole lot of nothing. Sorry, Tom, I love you. But I remember Cryonide and I were reacting to this live on stream while I was off the perk.
Oh yeah, we were.
If you want context for that, chat, you're not getting any.
Yeah, no. He was doing a lot of drugs.
I was off
for
the
like
perks
a week.
for like a week straight.
Yeah, it was a
and-
trip.
Yeah, and so we were watching that, and he just started saying like random shit, like Afton found the mimic in the basement or something. You remember this?
Yeah, he just made shit up.
Yeah, and eventually he came out of the video with no conclusions. Basically, he was like, "So are the games canon?" Or, wait, hold on. So are the books canon?
Are the games canon?
That's the real
No.
question. We gotta be asking
They
the
are
real
not.
question.
I believe in games, guys.
Games.
Hey, some people don't anymore with Into the Pit. Games has been
Oh,
called into
Christ.
question.
I will say the whole reboot idea is still pretty nice, and I don't blame anyone for going that direction. The whole, not specifically in reference to like Frights and Tales reboot, I mean more so the full reboot idea. The idea that after UCN, just everything is in a new continuity.
I wish.
Didn't Scott explicitly say that that's not the case because people were
Yeah.
confused about Help Wanted?
He
Yes.
did.
Yes, he did.
But is that in that one post where he's like, I am not canon. Something is not canon.
Yeah.
I
He
am
said-
canon the Five Nights at Freddy's.
He said we are not canon, and the saddest thing he said was saying that the fan games aren't canon because now we have the fanverse, and now no one knows whether or not, since they're technically official, and we saw canon as like official from Five Nights at Freddy's at the time. So he kind of messed up his own definition of canon.
By the way, if Unwithered Truth makes that video into an actual game, they should put it in the fanverse, in my personal opinion.
That would
We
be
we all have to
pretty awesome.
fight Scott until he puts it in.
Yeah, we gotta pull up to his address.
Maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe the FNAF 2 movie premiere. If any of us get invites, we all have to agree that we're gonna go to Scott and we're gonna say, make this canon.
That'd be hype. Invites to the premiere.
yeah,
Hell
we'll make
yeah.
it, dude.
We made it big, boy.
We made it big. Scott called and invited us.
All right, well, book canonicity. Let's start then with Fazbear. Actually, no. Let's start with the easy one. The novels, because these are not in the game.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, do you want to
These-
make sure that
Well,
we
well,
why
don't-
we
Oh
think
wait, give me. This is why
Well-
I hear. Get canceled on
Yeah.
Twitter. Go.
Technically, the books, the Silver Eyes trilogy, are referenced in the games because of the arcade cabinets and security breach.
novels fiction is pretty peak.
Theodore, who is Charlie's little, bunny rabbit friend, is on one of the arcade cabinets. So the Silver Eyes is definitely referenced in game. Now, is that just an Easter egg? The way that like Garrett's plane and Into the Pit is an Easter egg? Probably, but like it's still there.
I will say it is strange how Into the Pit game specifically has the Twisted Ones cover, and then I do
True.
believe one of the arcade machines is of the Twisted Ones. Why is it the Twisted Ones that are seemingly showing up in the game's canon?
And you
I
have
don't
and you have
know.
Wolf in Toy Chica high school years too.
Yeah.
Yacht.
They keep they keep alluding toward it.
That wasn't me. That was Fazgoo.
I
Yeah, that
think-
wasn't you. That was
that was my Fazgoo clone.
This is why
will say-
you're the professional streamer here. If we talk for too long, you just have to like put brain mod in so that people keep talking.
Yeah.
People keep listening.
Retention max.
Just put
Attention rate, yeah.
Subway Surfers
Skibbity.
over one of us if we just start going on too long.
Back in the day before the back rooms. Jingle, jingle. I said my favorite word.
Anyway, continue
I
about
don't-
arcade cabinets and such.
I don't know if anyone still believes Frights fiction, but I do think if Frights fiction is the direction that Scott wants to go, I also think that novels fiction would be just as valid of an idea, because it just makes sense that if Fazbear was already doing this stuff, we know they did with the games, then I don't think it's that far off that they would create a book series about the events that took place in the universe.
Yeah, man, I don't know anyone who still talks about Frights
Yeah,
fiction.
who the fuck thinks
Yeah.
Frights fiction?
No one at all.
Yeah.
I think like the further the timeline gets from the events of like William and Henry and all that stuff, the more likely it is that the company and like the general public would know the details that they would need to know to make the Silver Eyes an in-universe book. Because like if you read Frights, none of the details are specific, and some of the details that are specific contradict the games. So you can fit in a Frights fiction headcanon when you're reading Frights. But the Silver Eyes, it's like Charlie was Henry's daughter and he built these robots and like this, like you can't write those books unless you know real facts about those characters from the games. And I don't think the Fazbear Entertainment knows all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's very far off from what actually happens. Because like half of those events don't happen in the game's timeline, and the whole point of the fake games is to make light of stuff that did happen.
Okay,
It's
so
true.
people okay, so just for full transparency, I don't actually believe Frights fiction. I just think it's a good headcanon. I don't think it's actually true. But when people try to argue with me saying that it's not a good theory, they always have the opinion, basically what you just said, which is like Fazbear's making these books to make light of the things that happened in the past. That's what Fazbear did with the Help Wanted VR game. What Fazbear did with the indie dev games that they paid, what was it, Steve Snodgrass to make, was they wanted these real accusations that people had to be something that they could like sue in court for libel. So if they pay someone to write these Fazbear Frights stories that are like based on real events, they can point and say, oh, you believe that there were murders? You must have read this propaganda books that people published without our permission that we then correctly sued them in court and won for. So it's not that they're making the books the way that they make Help Wanted, it's they're making the books the way that they made Steve Snodgrass's games in Help Wanted.
Can't believe
You
Scott
think-
named his self-insert Steve Snodgrass for real. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's absurd.
I was gonna say, do you think if they were made as actual books in universe, they'd also be made by Steve Snodgrass, or they'd plaster his name on them?
They would plaster his name.
I
on
bet
it for
it's
sure.
like we're gonna get the book called Help Wanted 2. It's just about an author doing the same shit.
Yeah, it's just Alan Wake.
But Steve
Stephen King.
Snodgrass is a video game developer. Can video game developers also write? Can Scott
From my
write?
experience, no. From my experience,
From my
no.
experience, hell no.
Hell no.
Scott Cawthon is the greatest writer on earth.
Writer on
Oh
earth. So we go from the novels, which people barely talk about. We can go really into like frights now. So starting with,
Oh boy.
What about the survival logbook?
I mean that's duh.
Well,
Yeah,
okay. People
Still
do
good.
think there what is it, meta theory? Basically that like the book is not in universe canon, it's just giving us lore hints that we can then like kind of transpose into the games. Like it is correctly, people believe it is giving us Cassidy and Dave's names, but that the book itself is not canon. So whenever people look at it and they're like, oh, it must take place before FNAF 3, or oh, Mike must, draw pictures of whatever, they're like that stuff isn't canon. That's the theory. I don't believe it, but that's the theory.
Yeah, I don't see the point because the answers it does give us are game canon. So I just don't. I feel like it makes perfect sense. You can slot it into the timeline somewhere.
Yeah, I think that they kind of went to great lengths to make it so it does slot into the timeline. And so saying that
Yeah.
it doesn't is kind of like, well, then why did they go to so much effort?
Because they got the whole like for real value. They got the whole Foxy as the in between chapter person. Feels like that's pretty like, hey guys, you remember FNAF 3? And Shisu's being very silent because he knows I'm about to bring up that Hudson is not the fright guard.
Oh my gosh.
Are we talking about this?
We'll go straight
Let's
into this.
go.
Oh, he's on mute. Never mind.
Yeah, he's on.
I made him so mad that he disappeared.
Do we want to wait
can
until
drag the
he's
theory
back?
on
Wait till he
you.
gets
Talk
back.
about
Wait till he
Hudson?
gets back. Yeah. We'll start with Into the
Okay.
Pit. Okay. So Into the Pit has been done 3 times. We had
Four times. Don't you dare. There will be no graphic novel erasure on
There
your
will be.
show.
Yes, there will be. Yes, there will be.
Yes, there.
Holy man. Okay, so Into the Pit, we have the Fazbear Frights story. Now, does anyone think that Into the Pit, the Fazbear Frights story, is in the game timeline? Exactly as it happens in that book.
I do not.
Because I don't.
Yeah, I think the silence speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I really don't.
I am
yeah.
curious because, obviously people will say like, oh, the book isn't, but now Return to the Pit is, or oh, the game is. My question for people who believe that is, did you believe that the Fazbear Frights book was canon before the game came out, and then the game came out, now you think the game takes precedent?
Yeah.
Or did you think it wasn't canon, but now that it's being adapted into Return of the Pit / Into the Pit game, that now that version is canon? Like, I'm just wondering, the people who do believe that the game or that the interactive novel are canon, is why?
I've seen people saying that because it has been adapted so many times, that Scott, like, guys, this is important. It could also just be because Scott likes that story.
Yeah, I don't think the fact that it happened several times means it's important. I think that just means like Scott wanted to do it a bunch.
But you
Like
knew
we
it-
have to remember, a lot of Scott's ideas are just like, oh, this sounds fun, and then he just does it, and that's all there is to it. That's what he did for like more than half of the books that we have.
Mhm.
So the idea that, oh, this exists, this has to be important, I think is just fundamentally wrong.
It's also just like a very good, obviously it was the first story, so he probably put a lot of more time and effort into it than the others when he was running out of ideas.
Yeah.
But like, it's just a very, I'm going to say, cinematic story, right? Like there's multiple locations. It takes place over the summer. It kind of has like that. It has like an 80s movie feel. And he also literally travels back in time to the 80s. And then he has like his friends in school, and he has his parents' strife, and he has his like, I'm an awkward teenager stuff. Like, it's just a very, like, it's a story that stands on its own, which is why I think he like continually wants to go back to it.
Yeah.
You can't do 5 different adaptations of To Be Beautiful.
No,
Like, it's just not that interesting.
Just wait. Oh.
Y'all ever notice both Oswald and Capella reference old movies all the time and also really like bacon?
They do, don't they?
Yeah.
They're one and the same.
I've never clocked the bacon thing.
I
Bacon
did because it's a
theory.
very millennial thing to make bacon jokes. I think
That is so true.
Yeah. But is Scott Cawthon a millennial or is he Gen X?
He's the greatest writer on earth, actually.
I will
Yeah,
look
fair
up
That's
his
all,
age.
that's all that matters.
Yes, I'll look up his age.
40 something, right?
I think
I
so.
think so.
I know that like before. Oh, he's only 46. Wow, he was like 35 when FNAF took off. That's crazy.
That
There's
actually
still
is
hope for me.
nuts.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
so
no
he's,
hope for us.
he's like the. He'd be like the older millennials. He was born in 78. So some people are like, oh, 76 to 96 is millennials. So like very, very older millennial, young Gen X.
Mhm.
But either way, we know that he spent like a lot of time on Reddit before FNAF got popular talking about game development because people found his old
Yeah,
Reddit account where he was being like an
I love
edgelord and
those. I
like
love
cursing
those.
at people.
I love those.
And he'll
my
never admit
gosh.
that it was him. Yeah, so like when he was a rash younger man, he was definitely spending a lot of time on the
In
internet.
his youth.
His youth, yeah,
The Reddit
29 or
warrior.
whatever.
Anyway, so another thing about Into the Pit is that the events that it has in there regarding the MCI are not how it happened at all. Like
Yeah.
police did not show up right after he stabbed the kids and be like, "Oh God, guys, look, they're the kids."
Yeah,
We
that
got 'em.
goes against everything that we've
Yeah.
ever known.
And that's why even people saying like, "It's an agony memory that's twisted to be
Hmm.
agony. It's reflecting what happened." I'm like, well, that didn't
So
happen.
Into the Pit is fiction. Is what that's what it's saying.
Well, I'm saying even if it's showing like a duplication of what
Yeah.
happened, even if it is a memory, the police never showed up, so that wouldn't be
Yeah.
accurate either.
And even if it's just like a manipulated agony memory, that would mean that like the canon story is that something fictional happened.
Mhm.
And that's just stupid.
In Return to the Pit, in like the Avengers section, when he's talking to what is it like?
Speak.
Do they ever be like, oh yes, the murders happened? Like in the present, outside of the pit, do any of the characters ever say that it happened the way that Oswald sees it when he's back in time?
Don't they say that
Like-
more kids went missing in the pit?
Yes.
I think, doesn't he
They
say
say
that,
more
like,
kids time jumped.
Yeah,
they say more kids
yeah.
time travel, which makes no sense, but okay, or at least it hasn't been followed up on yet.
But then you get to the question of, was any of that real, or was that all still pit shenanigans? Where like he thought he was back in the real world, but he was really still in the pit.
I'm gonna pull a withered circle here.
Oh no.
So, okay, Withered Circle hates Frights fiction. He says it's the worst fan theory ever, and he's not here to defend himself, so I will state his point that he hates it, he thinks it's stupid. I think it's personally one of my favorite theories. I think it has absolutely no evidence backing it up. It's very cool headcanon. Something I view, and like it's great, and it makes the stories count even if they're not canon. I think it's a really fun way to look at it. It's just that there's no evidence for it. One of the things that I've been seeing other people talk about is the theory, I think it's like called pit loop or something,
Yeah.
that all of the incarnations of Into the Pit are canon, where like Oswald goes into the pit in the story, but then he never really gets out, and then he like time loops back to the beginning of the story so that the game can happen, and then he loops to the beginning of the story so that return to the pit can happen, so like he never leaves. And that is the same kind of headcanon that Frights fiction is, where it allows you to say that they all count, but there's absolutely zero evidence for it. And so I think any theory that starts with like, oh, it's fine that Chip said that other people time traveled and that there were, people that he confirmed that Oswald really did time travel. It's not an agony manifestation. That makes perfect sense because the entirety of Return to the Pit happens within a loop in the actual story. I'm like, no, that's just like too many assumptions there.
I mean, yeah, but then you do got the Stitch Wraith just outside Oswald's window. And you're like, well,
yeah, but that
that's
like
not
but
how
that
this-
doesn't make sense. But that doesn't even make sense if it's not a loop. That's
That's what I mean. Then you got like, because there are some things you can't explain with that, where it's like, well, hello there, thing that's not supposed to exist for a long time.
The explanation, or no, it shouldn't have existed. When does, I don't know.
Nothing about that
explanation
makes sense. That's the problem. Nothing
Yeah.
about the Stitch Wraith being there makes any goddamn
Especially
sense.
since Oswald lives on the second floor.
Yeah. First of all,
Well,
he's
no,
floating.
Levitation.
The Stitch Wraith jumps into the pit at the end of the Stitch Wraith Stingers. Spoiler. And,
Yeah, but
and then it
what's it
time
called?
travels back to Oz.
I mean, yeah, but then like when
But-
that happens, you
at the
specifically
battery.
see Jake. You also specifically
Oh,
see
yeah.
Jake doing stuff, not the Stitch Wraith. So it's like,
That's
why is the
true.
Stitch right there and not Jake?
That's why I had to have a small little conversation because someone tried to claim that the Into the Pit game was canon to Fazbear Frights, and I had to sit there and say, actually, you do
No.
realize the Into the Pit game contradicts a lot of stuff that's said in Frights. It itself is in its own semi-continuity.
Yes. Or that was just an Easter egg. Those are
Which,
the options.
Which is very irresponsible, but
Yeah,
One
which
of
is
the
stupid
unique-
as hell.
one of the unique takes I have on continuity is I think the week before kind of changed my mind a lot how this series works, because the whole concept of things still being canon, as in they could have happened this way but they didn't in continuity, kind of feels like the direction that all of this stuff is intended to be like. That I know the idea of split line sounds so strange, but I don't think that it's that bad of a concept, especially considering that an awful lot of the Stitch line plot line is specifically for a narrative experience and doesn't really do that well mixing in with just being a game experience. And I've really liked the idea that all of these continuities are just simply branches that come off from the main continuity that just have one or two like changes that lead it into this branch path that leads it into a completely different continuity. But there's still pieces like, just because inside of the week before, when we get to night 6, we hear mentions of no one has actually like applied for the night guard position. I don't think that's suddenly, oh, that's confirmation that this isn't an in continuity ending. I think that piece of evidence is there for a reason, because it is something that exists at that time, even if it's not the ending that we ended up getting canonically.
Which one's
It's-
split line?
Split line is basically the idea that everything that's established before FNAF 6 is still canon, but everything after FNAF 6 is a complete split of the timeline. It is a complete, it just goes off into the Fazbear Frights direction while the rest of the continuity goes Help Wanted and everything else.
Okay.
so everything before FNAF 6 happens the same in both.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's almost like I see that way of reading the story, but there's a lot of stuff in Frights where it talks about things that happened before FNAF 6 and even the events of FNAF 6 itself that don't really line up with the games. Like, I think the biggest one is when Larson talks about like William Afton's death. It's like, how does he, like, what death? Like the spring locking behind the wall as depicted in FNAF 3, or him burning in the FNAF 6 fire? Because neither of those, the police should have been aware were quote unquote William Afton's death. But he seems to have known when it happened. Even like you can
Aren't
say
the
that, oh, he
police-
died in the FNAF 6 fire, but then he goes to the hospital and they don't know who he is. They don't know his identity. So that can't be where he died.
Didn't the police like think that Henry's body was William's?
In Frights.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
If that's discussed after the 7th Citrate Stinger, then I wouldn't know about it.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember Henry ever being named.
Yeah, I don't think he's
Well,
ever
they
named
don't.
dropped.
They just find a body and think that it's William Afton's.
When
I
does
don't
that
think
happen?
they ever come to the conclusion that
Is this in the Man in Room 1280?
no, it's not.
what- It's in
when
the
is
Sith
this?
race.
I'm the
I've never
vengeful
heard of this
spirit.
before.
Yeah, in the Stitch Wraiths, Larson is aware of when William Afton died, which contradicts with the Man in Room 1280, where the hospital people are like, we don't know who this guy is. He just kind of showed up out of a fire once. Like, we don't know. So it's like, how could the police know that the person who was in the FNAF 6 fire was William, but the hospital not know it was William?
Yeah. All right, I've restrained myself. I've restrained myself for 25
Oh, here
minutes.
it comes. Shizu,
Andrew.
Oh, never mind. I thought we were talking about Hudson.
Oh, we'll get to it after.
Okay.
First and foremost, Andrew. Now, I believe only one of us thinks that Andrew is the vengeful spirit in this call. I'm looking, and I think I see him.
You made an entire song about it.
You did do
It
that.
came from a place of passion, not logic. It came from a place of passion.
Teacher, state your opinion for the record.
My opinion is that I have no fucking idea, and I'm not even going to attempt to guess which one it is, because there is evidence for both.
This is something else that I have been playing around with for a while, and I've been slowly coming to the conclusion that we argue about some of the most mundane things that have no effect on the timeline whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's like the FNAF 2, who's Fritz? Who's the Fright Guard? Who's the Vengeful Spirit? These things, I'm going to be completely honest, UCN, unless you are under the impression that Cassidy in some way, shape, or form is still in the universe, still alive and not dead, then I really don't think it matters who the Vengeful Spirit is.
But is it Andrew? Who do you think it is?
I can't give you a conclusive answer because I genuinely cannot tell you a logical answer because I have been trying so hard to come up with a conclusion. The way that I've broken it down so far inside of my head is that Golden Freddy is fairly clearly one of the most important, if not the most important person in UCN.
14.
I made an entire video
14.
about how the whole concept of William repairing himself with Golden Freddy would have most likely contained all of Golden Freddy's agony. So then when he's put inside of UCN, which is basically this agony nightmare that he's being forced to relive, then the strongest connection there would be Golden Freddy, the suit he used to repair himself. That's why Cassidy is this person who has the most agony out of everyone inside of UCN, torturing him. You also then have all of the connections to Custom Night in the past. FNAF 1, I know it's an Easter egg, but putting in 1987 gets you Golden Freddy. You have FNAF 2 specifically referring to it as the Golden Freddy mode. You have FNAF 3, which was the implied ending of their story at the time, which doesn't have a custom night, kind of suggesting that it was an MCI person who's creating these custom nights. You then, FNAF 4 also doesn't have a custom night. It's just too early in the timeline. No one has been born yet, or Golden Freddy hasn't been created, so there can't be a custom night. Sister Location does have a custom night where it specifically introduces Yendo and specifically is called Golden Freddy mode as well. So then you have all of these connections of, hey, custom night is associated with Golden Freddy.
Yep.
My biggest issue is the OMC cutscene, because I understand that there are alternate interpretations, but to me, the most straightforward interpretation is what we see in FNAF World, in which you have the player, the bear, and then you have OMC, who in FNAF World, he was just supposed to be a meta representative of basically the end of the road, where death. It is basically the guy getting you at the end of existence. I feel like that should somewhat correlate to what he does inside of UCN, considering that both endings get you the same trophy in FNAF World. But OMC is a character created by the one you should not have killed in UCN. It is just like every other character there, unless we're under the assumption that every single person in UCN is a soul. That would imply that OMC has a soul. I feel like OMC inside of UCN is clearly a projection from the one you should not have killed. So then is it Cassidy like telling herself to move on? Or is the implication that the bear just isn't Cassidy in that moment? Because that just seems, it just feels like we have the bear who's being told to move on and let William Afton be or leave the demon to his demons. And then you have Old Man Consequences, who was created by the one you should not have killed. So is this Cassidy talking to herself?
I actually think that, I'd say that Old Man Consequences as an entity is above Cassidy. This thing can go fucking wherever. It's in Help Wanted 2.
I agree.
For some reason. I don't think I don't think Cassidy puts it there. I just think Old Man Consequences, whatever force it represents, because I don't think it's a guy. I think it represents a force of nature, and it can just do whatever the fuck it wants.
I would say, like, I don't think that every, animatronic or opponent in UCN is a spirit, but I think some of them definitely are. Like, I think the puppet definitely is.
Yeah, of course.
I think you could argue that,
like, some are implied to be, like, the Withered Bonnie voice line is very like, hey, I'm a real person. Where the fuck am I?
Is that the what is this place?
What is this new prison?
Is this mine,
is it
or
you
is it
trapped?
yours?
Yeah, or is it me? Or is
like,
it
I can't imagine that a spirit created by like a vengeful spirit would be saying things like that. Like that just doesn't make any sense.
That I had a bit of a problem with because I was just talking to Glitch about this, about the concept of agony is strange. Agony
Really?
in some states are referred to kind of similar to Remnant, if not a version of Remnant. And we know that Remnant is the intangible, it's the memories, the soul being, anchored to a real life object. So does that imply that agony itself would still be a piece of the soul? Or would it simply just be the memories of those characters? Because I've always simply interpreted it as the fact of we have all these characters in FFPS. You have Elizabeth, who specifically has lines about her being upset at her father for abandoning her and things like that. You have rooms and experiences and things that William Afton never felt, but were things that Michael and the bite victim and all of the other kids had actually felt, all the people who were in FFPS during the fire. So it's always been the most easiest interpretation that during the fire, all of this agony that was inside of Fazbear Entertainment in this one burning building culminated into what the one you should not have killed used to torture William Afton.
That makes sense. That's
Isn't Phone Guy
there's certain
in
things.
UCN?
Yeah.
Isn't Phone Guy in UCN? Like that's one of the
Yeah.
distractions.
well, I think
Phone
it's just
guys
like
in
it
UCN.
takes
There's a lot of things in UCN that William should
even in
just
the
have no
logbook,
knowledge of.
even in the logbook, Cassidy sees into other people's memories. Like Cassidy can see
Yeah.
what the
True,
favorite
true.
toys were and all that. And does he still talk to you? Like Cassidy just has knowledge of other people's
Because
past.
this
That's because
was something that
Cassie's
was
going
argued
FNAF
about.
world in somebody's brain. In my personal opinion.
Yeah.
On God, that could be. Yeah.
Cassidy is FNAF World.
Here's my problem with
FNAF World is spaghetti.
my problem with the Andrew thing from Scott's perspective is that when you are writing this, there is no reason to create Andrew that far after UCN. Because I could show
Yeah.
UCN at the time it came out, I could show that shit to my grandpa, and he'd be like, "Oh yes, the vengeful spirit is probably that golden guy based on context clues," and I'd be like, "Yes, grandpa, that's so true, man." And then
Too bad
like-
it's this fucko from
yeah,
many months later.
no, it's yeah, like 20 years later, he writes a book, and there's this little alligator goober. And it
I
doesn't
do think it is completely reasonable and very possible that Scott left a dangling cliffhanger in UCN that the Vengeful Spirit is a new character, that it is Andrew, and that he wanted us to buy the books to find out who that person is. However, the fact that he never advertised Frights as read this to get the answer to who the Vengeful Spirit is.
yeah, that's
And the
pretty-
fact that when we get that answer, assuming it is the answer, when we find out who Andrew is, who the Vengeful Spirit is, the person who put UCN together, and he just gets sucked through a straw into Jake's version of heaven less than halfway through the story and then never mentioned again. Kind of seems like if that is the case, then Scott is a bad writer.
That's whoa.
Scott is,
And that's
whoa.
and
Please
since
don't
Scott
not get me
Whoa.
started on Andrew and the
since-
Singers. I'll
and
go
since
off for a
Scott-
while.
is the greatest writer on earth, I just think it is more likely that Andrew is not the Vengeful Spirit than it is that Scott made us wait 4 years and that was the answer.
And they
The
also
answer
say
was like the worst writing in the
Yeah.
series.
Yes.
they also say that Andrew is the only consciousness. She says there's two consciousnesses in his head. Where in UCN there'd be at least like 4.
Yes. Now, shout out Hyperdroid made the point that Man in Room 1280 could happen after the ending of UCN. So the ending of UCN, all the other spirits get to move on, but Andrew, the Vengeful Spirit, remains, and so it is only those two by the time of Man in Room 1280. I
feel
don't-
like
Holy
I still don't think
cringe.
that works, but
Holy
that's the only
cringe.
way you can interpret the OMC cutscene from an Andrew perspective is that it's specifically some other soul was in Afton for a time. Otherwise, who
Mhm.
the hell is letting go?
So you would say that
Do you
like
think that
leave
Andrew is
the-
Old Man Consequences?
There's no shot, bro. That dude's speaking too eloquently.
Andrew is like in the books. We only ever I don't think Andrew ever gets a perspective chapter. We only get him from Jake's perspective. He's just a little like snot rag. He's just like a
Yeah.
annoying child. He's a very well written child in that he's like stupid and annoying and mean.
But there's nobody.
He's not.
Oh yeah,
well-written
he's
as a
definitely the guy with the
vengeful
alligator mask who's fishing.
Wait,
What?
say that again?
I said
Old Man
there's
Consequences.
nobody out there who's like it's Andrew's Old Man Consequences because he's got an alligator mask.
I'm sure
Oh, people
somebody
think
said
that.
that.
There
but
are
they're
people
just
There
like,
are
Okay.
there's
people
no
who
way.
think that. But believe you me, there are plenty of people who think that.
Rad. That's all I needed.
Yeah, I mean, cause so you would think Shizu, based on like under that theory that like leave the demon to his demons. The first demon in that sentence is Andrew, and the second demon is William Afton. So just let him fuck with him. Just relax. You don't need to.
I have to imagine that leave the demon to his demons is like leave William Afton to suffer
hell,
here.
to actual hell.
Yeah.
Because that's what Henry says.
Like, I feel like
in
that's
FNAF 6.
like the most obvious answer.
But then it leaves the implication that Cassidy just quite literally went down to hell to torture William, which has like no.
I don't think
the
that's
vengeful
the
spirit
implication.
would. Well, here's the thing, though.
I don't think saying leave the demon to his demons means, hey, William Afton's in hell. Like, I don't think it has to be that literal.
I think it would be leave the demon to his consequences. Oh my god, the greatest writer on earth in verse 2. And also,
No, to
basically,
be honest with you, I think leave the demon to his demons just sounded cooler in Scott's head, so that's what he put down.
I think that he's like Cassie, the vengeful spirit is like keeping William's like soul like trapped to earth, so he can't go to quote unquote his demons. And so if UCN were to end, then he would. And so they're in this sort of like weird middle ground purgatory agony thing. And so I do think the demon is literal. It's leave William to the demons, to Satan.
yeah. And here's my thing is that we know that Scott Cawthon is the greatest writer ever born, ever conceived of. It's like he's like Anakin Skywalker, but for writing. And so, the background audio of that Old Man Consequences scene being William Afton just screaming, I feel like I feel like that means like that this is the demon. This is who we are not like interacting with right now. I think otherwise the background of it would be Andrew being like, ha ha ha, I'm Andrew.
Your understanding of the lake is that it is after the events of UCN, in which now William has gone down to hell, and Old Man Consequences is telling Cassidy to move on.
I think it's before William goes to hell. I think while William is suffering in whatever that dream/coma thing is, Old Man Consequence, whatever it is just, you know, that's at some point it's like, yo, chill. I think the OMC ending is the canon one.
So out of curiosity, wait, who do we think we're playing as in the OMC ending of UCN? Like, who do we think the
vengeful spirit?
Yeah, the
I've
vengeful
always
spirit.
interpreted
So.
the red bear to be Cassidy.
That also, I think they're one of the same. That's what I would say if Scott didn't write that shit. Like, I don't know. Now I don't know, but like if UCN never existed, everyone and their mother would be like, yeah, that's
always been my issue.
That's Cassidy.
What was the purpose of an awful lot of the things? William Afton exists as a character in Fazbear Frights. I don't really see the purpose of creating Andrew and not just saying that Cassidy was the one you should not have killed.
That's what I mean.
Fazbear Frights.
Yeah, because Cassie doesn't do anything in Fazbear Frights. I don't even think there is one.
You could have just as easily said, "Oh, Andrew or Cassidy is now in the Stitch Wraith, and that she had stuck around after the fire of FFPS, and that she's the one that's trying to kill Afton." It's just strange why it would just randomly introduce Andrew and not just have it continue to be Cassidy, especially with the whole mask thing. Why introduce an alligator mask dude at all? Just say it was the Golden Freddy mask and everyone would be like, oh, the Golden Freddy kid is torturing William Afton just like we predicted.
I think
is it time to talk about the gator mask? Because
I just want to say that Scott clearly went out of his way to not use any book characters in all the Frights. Like, we get the one Susie story, which is weird because it obviously takes place in modern day, so it can't be canon. No, he just want to use the game's characters in the books.
Yeah, that's
Scott
so
needs
like
Susie in every continuity.
Yeah, except for
I don't know
Susie.
why.
Ooh,
So
he likes
that's the one
if
baseline.
Cassidy, if he wanted the character, if he needed a character to do the things Andrew did or to do the things Jake did, and he named that character Cassidy, then people would think that that character is equivalent to games Cassidy. Like when we read Susie's story in Coming Home, it's so different than the games and then the Silver Eyes that we know that this is a different version of Susie, because like there's no dog. There's, you know, she's different colored hair. Like, this is clearly just a different incarnation of Susie.
Yeah.
But we don't know anything about Cassidy.
Okay.
And so if we got the men in room 1280 and the Stitch Wraiths and the character's name is Cassidy, we're going to be like, oh, this must be Cassidy's real story because we've nothing to contrast it with.
Roast of Chizu.
Why not make just Cassidy's story?
Because you're Scott.
What's so different?
Because he didn't want to make that.
Oh, because he's lazy. That's what.
Because it's too easy.
He didn't want to
for
make that the
people,
movie
yeah.
either.
That's true.
True.
You know, my problem with, because if I feel like if Andrew is the vengeful spirit, haha, trademark. um, sorry. If Andrew's the vengeful spirit, Cassidy essentially, to me at least, becomes kind of like a Timu version of the puppet, like, but just for the crying
Yeah.
child, because that's what people think Cassidy is if they don't think she's a vengeful spirit. They're like, she's in FNAF
Weird
world.
thing
and
is
helping the
that
crying
she's
child.
I can't blame anyone for thinking the Talbot Files was real, because I'm going to be genuinely honest.
It is
If
real.
FNAF 1, FNAF 2, and FNAF 3 all inherently create a connection between the puppet and Golden Freddy. I don't know what their connection is, but they are almost everywhere in the same place.
But anyway, yeah, Cassidy's Sheen puppet underneath Andrew Vengeful Spirit. So I just don't like it. I think it just makes her character less interesting. I still think she could be one of the people helping in FNAF world, but I don't see why you can't just have a complex character. Like maybe she can, hate William Afton and also not hate everybody else.
Yeah.
Like I
That's
don't,
my other
yeah.
weird gripe. She's fairly clearly the one that spring locked William. I know there's other interpretations, but she is implied to be the one that
fifth kid
spring
in
locked her.
Parliament.
Why is he not, in UCN after that? After follow me.
I think, I don't know.
Because he's alive.
Yeah, no,
Wait,
but
what?
she
But
should still be
technically in
able.
UCN, he's still alive.
Yeah, I'm
I
saying,
don't think he's
I'm
alive in
saying-
UCN. I think he's dead, and he's like a Horcrux. I think he's the Voldemort fetus on platform 9 3/4. I think he's dead, but he can't move on to the real afterlife, and he's stuck there.
Yeah,
UCN lines.
I think after she gets spring locked, no, I agree with Shizu. When he's in the back room for 30 years, shouldn't she just be able to like go in his mind and do that then? He's not moving for 30 years anyway.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I just don't think that she can do that.
So he needs
For
to
some
be
reason.
he needs to be even weaker.
He needs to be dead. Like I think, we get the line, oh, what a thing to relish, a victim who can't perish, right? Like he's already dead.
Yeah, but the man in room
I'm going to take you
1280,
part and repeat. The man in room 1280
he's not dead in
is
that.
not games canon.
Uh-huh.
And
this
also,
time,
as
death
I have
did not
controversy-
save you.
The vengeful
Vengeful
spirit.
spirit.
As I have
Andrew is
controversially
the
argued
vengeful
in the
spirit.
last 2 weeks, what we are described in the Man in Room 1280 is not reminiscent of UCN at all. It's reminiscent of how Jake and Andrew are inside the Stitch Wraith. We said that they can't see anything. They don't really have forms inside of it, but they can still shove their elbows into each other and fight for control of the machine. So
Yeah,
what we're
which
seeing in
they
Men in Room
actually-
1280, all we're seeing is Andrew and William fighting for control of the body that they're both inhabiting.
They're
And
having
that
a
has
clash of
nothing in common with
domains.
UCN.
Clash
Yeah.
of domains.
I think people just saw spirits torturing each other, and they latched on to UCN. I don't think that was ever the intention, or that we can learn
Latched on.
anything from UCN from the Man in Room 1280.
Yes, but then the soundtrack of UCN is he's
Do
alive.
not make those noises.
It is
ever.
like his heartbeat. It is literally his heartbeat.
That's why I cry. It's a
We got to be better than this.
yeah. That's what I
We
mean. How
gotta
is
be
he?
better than
So
this.
what would you say about that?
I'd say that his
Coincidence?
ghost soul, operates the way that a human body would. He would still have to breathe. Obviously, he can be torn apart by the robots in this version of his punishment. In purgatory. Dante's Inferno. You're watching people getting their eyeballs torn out. They still have eyeballs.
I'm saying, yeah, I don't like the idea that he literally just goes to a hospital after FNAF 6. I think it's so stupid.
I think it is also very stupid.
Because shouldn't he have the scrap trap suit on him too?
Yeah.
Yes, unless it got just completely burned
Yeah, but
off.
security breach.
Everything else is there.
And Remnant heals metal. In both the Fazbear Frights and in the Silver Eyes, Remnant heals metal. So if he's kept alive by Remnant, then his suit should have also been kept together by Remnant.
Could someone explain the significance of the heartbeat of UCN? Could someone explain that to me real quick?
Well, the theory
It
is
goes
that
hard.
yeah, the theory is that he's
It goes
alive.
Oof, oof, oof.
The theory is
No,
Makes
but
that
sense.
okay, wait. What are we actually talking about? Because I need to make sure I understand.
oh, it's in one of the music tracks has a faint heartbeat in the background.
It's ambience.
Okay, yeah, no, I need to understand what this means before I call it stupid. So, are people saying that because of that, William Afton has a heartbeat, so he's alive?
Yes.
Yes.
So, how do we feel about Michael breathing in FNAF 3 when he has no insides?
He was healed by a remnant
Vibes.
before FNAF 3. That's how I
true.
feel
Actually,
about that.
that could be true.
To be
Actually,
fair,
That's
Michael
true.
won't
might
die.
not be.
No,
No.
okay.
Oh, let's talk about it.
We
Let's
have
go.
an
Let's go. Let's talk about
Okay,
it.
Hudson.
Okay, Hudson is
Hudson
stupid
is
as
the
fuck.
Fazbear
Let's talk
Fright
about
God.
it.
This is again one of those things of why not just use the characters we already know exist? Why does William Afton get to be the one character who gets to exist in every continuity, even though now we know that Henry and Charlie also exist in every continuity?
We have a Michael Schmidt.
We know Mike
Okay.
exists because you're the band, so I don't see any
Isn't that
reason.
not canon?
It's
Isn't that in the
scrapped,
last book?
but it was still an idea. Mike exists as a character in Fazbear Frights in some way, shape, or form. I don't see
Disagree.
any reason why not just to have him there.
Felix
Why
the
not
Shark is
just
better than the
put him in?
Silmarillion.
So many words were just said. So many things were just said.
Chat, I want to see that on every FNAF video you watch from now on. I want top comment to be Felix the Shark is better than the Silmarillion. That's like J.R.R. Tolkien's like masterwork of world building.
Tolkien.
Yeah. Anyway, Hudson Guard. This shit is ass. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not good. I don't think.
Because why? First of all, logbook. I'm just gonna say that's it. Logbook. Like, why does that even exist? If it's Hudson.
Okay, wait, Shizu, could you explain? Just explain what we found to the audience, real quick.
Explain then explain the Hudson Fright Guard theory. So explain what we
Okay.
found.
Some things about what we found that a lot of people don't know. Well, let's see. What we found is 30 plus years after some tragic event that happened in Freddy's. It is confirmed to be about multiple locations, not just one location. While it does refer to a single tragedy, it does say that it is built after multiple locations and after years of events at Freddy's. We specifically get information that this is like early weeks. Hudson is a 23-year-old working as the Fright Guard mixed with Virgil. A lot of people think that's Michael, but a lot of other people don't think it's Michael because he says he has a wife, even though, you know, people can lie, but whatever. Hudson, he committed a bit of a crime in the past.
A little bit of
where,
arson. Little bit of arson.
He might have burned his house and like killed his dad or his stepdad Lewis or whatever. It's not that important, but it kind of makes everyone like not fuck with him. And then so one day they're like, dude, we found one, a real one, and they put him up on a cross inside the building. No, they just
crucify.
hook him
Oh,
up.
I thought you were serious.
That would have been hard.
They just
Crucified
fucking nail
Springfield.
him to the wall, and then they're like, yeah, this cool rabbit thing. And then Hudson gets up close and he's like, dude, I'm pretty fucking sure that's human flesh in there. What kind of who would make that? That's so weird. And then he starts hearing his math teacher call him an idiot. And he kind of goes mad after that and jumps inside of an oven, and he ends up dying inside that oven. However,
So you think all of that happens in FNAF?
there is one piece of evidence that I feel like gets pretty overlooked. While the location does contain multiple locations that do not exist in Fazbear Frights, or Fazbear Fright, which a lot of people use as evidence that it can't be the same location. It does specifically mention the puppet hallway from the FNAF 3 location, and specifically regards to something as the fake office, which is a 1-to-1 replica with the FNAF 3 office, which is fairly strange, considering that a lot of people tried to catch me on this and say, well, what office does he go to, Shizu? No, he goes to a real office. He says he goes to a real office. There is a real office in the FNAF 3 office. They are two different offices.
I'm charging up my Kamehameha
Okay.
right now. Here
Well,
we go. Wait,
I
my
have a
Kamehameha.
For
question.
It's
reason
about to come out.
I have
I
a question.
can't see
off.
it as in continuity is
Yeah.
specifically because Michael, even in a duo situation, wouldn't have been able to come in and hear the phone calls that he does in FNAF 3. by the time that Springtrap and stuff have already showed up. I know they say that, oh, well, the phone systems, yeah, it'd be several days after they already found Springtrap. It'd just be a little weird to try and say that was just
charging.
Springtrap was just
Very, very much
conveniently
so.
in that location.
Before you
while.
obliterate him, I have a question. So is the theory that this book is literally games canon and that you are Hudson in FNAF 3, or is the theory that the Fright Guard in the games is the game's continuity version of Hudson, the way that like Susie in Coming Home is not the real game Susie, but they're still both Susie the Chica victim? Like, is it a parallel, the same character, an adaptation? Is it an adaptation of Hudson, or is it saying that the book is literally canon? Because I'm going to say that if he dies on like the third night or whatever, then the book can't be canon.
Doesn't he die on the second night?
It's an interactive novel branch.
What?
It's an interactive novel branch. Just like how Phone Guy can go on to work a sixth night in a non-canon branch, that is what happens to Hudson inside of what we found.
Kaioken.
Kaioken times 10.
I feel like you just called it non. TD blast off. Bro.
Ah,
So you
4 games, 1 story. 4 games, 1 story. All right.
Show me Michael Afton before a sister location.
Okay, no, I think
Mike
the Foxy
doesn't
Bro.
exist,
I think
bro.
the Foxy Bro was always supposed to be the
That's
night guard.
Michael Schmidt.
I think the Foxy
Michael
Bro was
Schmidt
always
is
supposed to be the
not
night
an
guard.
important character to William Afton.
I think the Foxy Bro was always supposed to be the night guard. So
Yeah.
how is Hudson relevant to this one story?
FNAF 1, Mike Schmidt. FNAF 2, Jeremy and Fritz. FNAF 3, just randomly Mike Schmidt again.
Yes.
So you
What
think
connection does Mike
because
Schmidt
Fritz is Mike,
as of FNAF 3?
because Fritz is Mike, but
Okay, now you guys, let's calm down there. Let's calm down.
I will say that's probably one of the weakest theories that exists because there's literally nothing backing it up except that people want it to be true, but enough people want it to be true, so we just gotta treat it like it is.
Do you think the beautiful storyline, the beautiful one story is that
motivation.
3 weirdos, 3 idiots that no 3 idiots fought Springtrap and animatronics. That's the one story.
The most important part is motivations, and as of FNAF 3, what's our motivation for Michael Schmidt returning?
The logbook.
The logbook did not exist as of FNAF 3.
But Scott probably had the backstory in mind because there's no holes in the story, only holes in our understanding. And so he later revealed more of the story within the logbook. Because Scott Cawthon is the greatest writer on earth.
Right around.
The logbook.
Okay.
I think that the logbook is intended to show the parallels between Michael and Hudson, because Hudson is fairly clearly a parallel to Mike, but he is not a stand-in.
When does the logbook take place then? Because it shows the interior of the Frights office.
Made an entire video about this. The logbook is updated every single new location.
But like there's a cardboard box with the masks from the toys on the floor. Like that's not a permanent
Yes,
picture.
because Fazbear Frights are building this location based off all the cool stuff that happened in Fazbear's past. And Michael, being the guard at FNAF 1, would be representative of whoever the guard is in FNAF 3, because FNAF 3's guard is playing the part of a night guard. He is quite literally a parallel to Michael, because Michael had to spend a night at Freddy's. Now Hudson is spending a night at quote-unquote Freddy's.
I will say in FNAF 3, you do have the underlying like theme that the night guard is waiting for something. He's been there even though there's like nothing going on. It's like glad he came back for another night. It's gonna be a lot more interesting this time.
Is if it was just Michael, why didn't he just burn down the building on night 2 when he saw Springtrap?
Because he doesn't know what Springtrap is until he
Because
finishes
the
all
game
the
is called 5 Nights at Freddy's.
Is that why he got told, hey, you have to stick to the quota?
Yeah. Scott Cawthon came out of the screen and said, listen to me, Michael.
Like, you cannot burn down this location for another 4 days. You understand me? We are sticking to the name of this game.
I think originally FNAF 3, like, can you guys hear me?
Holy lag.
Faintly.
You are breaking.
Robot bunny.
You're falling into the Spider-Verse a little bit.
The mimic.
I'll give up.
I think you're cooked. Might need to reload. Hold on, Cheesy, let me help you out. I'll help you out with the Hudson Fright card, okay? Since I'm feeling nice. Okay, I'll retract my Kamehameha slightly. All right. In
You just gotta
FNAF,
suck it back into your body, bro.
yeah, like Kirby. In
Okay.
in FNAF 6, Scrap Trap says, you probably don't recognize me at first, but it's still me. And I feel like Michael would recognize it if he saw his dad in a dead rabbit suit, a couple years ago. So that's one thing for that. You were not playing as Michael in FNAF 3.
I know people argue that line's not as strong as it is, and I think it's a pretty good line, but some people don't interpret it as very good evidence because, he switched costumes. So that's plenty enough evidence.
I still feel like you'd be like, the giant dead rabbit guy. It's probably the last time I saw a giant dead rabbit guy. Probably the same dude.
So I guess my question.
Oh, you're alive.
You first.
Yeah, you're good.
You're alive.
It's because of Mike Trap. That's the excuse for why that line doesn't mean.
Yeah, but Mike
that
Trap's
he's not
canon, though. Anyway, go ahead.
It was to clarify that there's been one singular yellow rabbit, and that is William Afton. Because if there wasn't, then everyone would claim that we're playing as Springtrap in FNAF 6, and that Scrap Trap is William, while we're playing as.
You're wrong. There's more than one.
Like being
There's more than one yellow rabbit. The FNAF 4 minigame, he puts a guy into a yellow rabbit suit. That's the real
I don't
Afton.
think Scott went to
true.
that length to like disprove Mike Trap because MatPat said it like once, and then the sister location ending like confirmed that it wasn't the case.
They thought I was you.
Yeah, like
Get
he
it,
threw that
guys?
line in, and then I don't think in FNAF 6 he would have to have.
I
more.
can
I guess-
understand why you're saying that, Gibby. You're still on the level that I used to be. I loved Gabriel Midnight Motorist. I loved Gabriel Midnight Motorist.
He fears Mega Evolve.
No, okay, let's reword that. I used to be really into Gabriel Midnight Motorist, and then the whole excuse of William is orange in this minigame because of the Mike Trap debate was the most annoying excuse ever. There's no reason to make him orange other than Scott wanted to be annoying.
I think
God.
that is the reason.
Okay. Well, before we even get to Midnight Motors, just Hudson wise, why would you take all of these steps to come to this conclusion when the other conclusion seems like it's more directly what the games are pointing at? Like, where's the smoking gun? Here's the big piece of evidence, and then I can like explain away all the contradicting evidence. Like, where's the thing that makes you believe that other than the one Fright story? And if it is just the one Fright story, why does that take precedent over all the other Fright stories? Why don't you think that Golden Freddy is Kelsey from The New Kid? Why don't you think that Millie is Bon Bon from Count the Ways? Like, why is that one Fright story the Fright story?
Kelsey's a projection. And Millie doesn't get killed. Okay. Were we not all on the same page that Kelsey is not a real person? Were we under the impression that Kelsey was a child? Kelsey is a Gajinga.
I didn't think he was a fucking like a projector made him out of the ceiling.
Well, no, like a thought form projection, like a
Brian, did you think? Brian, did you think he meant?
I don't know what the hell was going on.
I thought he meant a hologram.
No.
Like Tony Stark.
The story heavily implies that like whatever the black-haired kid in Golden Freddy is like projecting himself as a blonde-haired Kelsey. Like that's what the story is saying.
Okay, that makes more sense than a hologram.
It's also why Cypher believes that it's going to be revealed that the blonde kid is actually Cassidy inside the movies, and that it's just a fake child that she's projecting, just like Kelsey was.
So you just become German when you project out of the...
Oh no,
we're moving on to something else.
Okay, wait, hold on. I need to go way back to when my internet was breaking. I was saying, I think the original reason why the guard was supposed to stay all the way through in FNAF 3 back when it was just FNAF 3 is because they have to touch the wall tiles and the cupcakes in order to save the kids.
I heard
and they
Walton
had face shapes.
yes.
Here's the thing.
Good theory. It's all real.
Does the
Mike has to play the arcade
good
game. It's all real.
ending is the good ending the canon ending of FNAF 3?
Yes.
At some point.
That would imply that Happiest Day occurs during FNAF 3 and would imply the MCI are no longer around. Unless you're getting into soul splitting. And if we're going into soul splitting, then everyone's just still alive in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
I actually do believe in soul splitting, unfortunately.
Soul splitting is so directly confirmed by FNAF 6. I don't know how it's arguable.
Because by
this
that
is a
same
store-bought
conclusion.
computer. I didn't build this.
What is going on?
What?
That's a great concept there, Candy. I think you should expand on that.
RAM is memory if you don't get it.
Wait, hold on.
She's recording one of my videos.
I just want to say, I was like half not paying attention, and I hear Caesar just saying in the most serious voice, Kelsey is a projection. And I really thought he meant he was a fucking hologram.
I did too. I really did too. Those few moments were the funniest moments of the entire podcast.
That's so fucking good. All right, where do we even go from here?
There's too many concepts.
We're done with
We've only
Andrew.
done 2 Fazbear Frights stories.
We're done with
We
Hudson.
haven't even talked about Tales yet, by the way.
Yeah, I know. We need to get. Are we done with Frights now?
Are we going? Are we gonna talk more about Andrew?
about the
Are we gonna talk
stingers?
more about Hudson?
We talked
We can talk
about
the Stitch Wraith or the Stingers. Yeah.
yeah. We really
They
only
suck.
talked about
Let's
Man in
move
Room
on.
1280 and Into the Pit. Like there's so many other stories,
And what we found.
and what we found in a little bit of
Okay, what
Right.
stories do we want to talk about?
I'll let someone else start
Lonely
this one.
Freddy.
Okay, yeah, actually, Lonely Freddy and Stupid Fazgoo, right? Both stories, and also Gumdrop Angel. Both stories are like implying that in the towns that like these Freddy's locations exist in, there's just like this constant supply of kids who are going missing. Lonely Freddy implies that like 20 to 30 kids have gone missing in the last week since like the garbage truck has been here. In He Told Me Everything, it's like an entire class gets Fazgooed every single semester. And then in Gumdrop Angel, it's like at least once a week or so. It's very ambiguous, but like once a week or so, a kid just disappears because they're a gummy candy.
This cannot all be happening in the same universe,
Candy,
bro.
candy.
The average number of children a couple has to have would have to be like 10 because they're getting killed off like.
Yeah, what's going on?
They're Mormon, aren't they?
What's in
By
the
this,
water?
Holy. That killed Gibby. Gibby's mic just got destroyed.
Yeah, give me destroyed the sound barrier, bro. He's gone.
I had to take my headset off. I was too loud.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I'm good. I'm back. It's fine.
Yeah, I know MatPat said that the Lonely Freddy's was actually what Psychic Friend Fredbear was, and then I punched my screen.
So there's like 20 Psychic Friend Fredbears. They can just make Psychic Friend Fredbears.
Yeah, that's what they're like. They're give me your soul, kid. I think he's
And
wrong.
there's-
I think that was just like
No, really?
yeah. I think
Never
he was
again,
just
Matthew.
I think he was just spitballing.
He's burning.
He's just saying words.
Like that means that so many human kids walking around are actually like their sentience is based on the AI of the original Lonely Freddy, and so many kids walking around are just Fazgoo clones.
Here's why I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of that
Like,
is
what-
canon. It's because like that would just so make Henry's whole plan so ass. He's like, all right, I got like 3 people here. The 8,000 kids that are trapped inside of like a fucking ninja blender. Oh well. They're-
Unlucky. Better luck next time, dumbasses.
Sorry, bud. Maybe you should have read the back of the book and learned that your wishes don't need to come true. Be grateful for what you have.
Maybe.
Oh, no.
William Afton
Oh,
just
no.
went around and collected every Fazgoo clone to become part of him.
No.
Where is it?
Yes.
It was off screen. You don't remember?
Yeah, it was off screen. Yeah.
I mean, like on his character model. He just ate them. He ate them.
Yeah.
Andrew Pizza.
Doesn't Burn Trap have teeth?
Lonely Freddy Pizza.
Okay, let's
Burn Trap have
clarify
human
some
teeth?
things. Okay,
I think so.
the Scrap Rabbit we see in the end of Fazbear Frights is just a Fazgoo clone of the real Scrap Rabbit. William Afton's still running around as a giant Scrap Rabbit.
We've reached peak brain rot.
We need to let's move on to let's be done with Frights. We've gone too far.
Yeah, that's the thing, because Frights, no one thinks most of the Fright stories are canon. It's just Stitched Line. People really
I've
argue
seen
about.
people
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to say that Frights games is fully real recently.
I feel
Not
like
even just Stitch Line, just
Stitch
the whole
Line
No,
is
thing.
just
more-
all of
more
Frights.
canon.
Just all
That-
of Frights.
Coming Home like just cannot be canon.
Oh, I don't agree with them. I think they're all idiots. But like, you know.
Okay, so Burn Trap has human teeth. As we all know, Springtrap did
Yeah.
not. Therefore, he regrew his mouth with Fazgoo.
Remnant?
No.
Remnant. No, because the Fazgoo turns into a mouth. Remember, you
Yeah,
idiots.
and he tells you everything.
And the thing, everything is, he goes, "I'm Springtrap." That's it. That was everything. I was there.
Why is Felix the Shark scrapped if it's an alternate continuity?
You mean the book that's better than the Silmarillion? I don't know.
I mean, what's the point in scrapping it? Does it break the continuity?
I think I know what the point was.
Like it.
No, I think I knew what the point of scrapping it was.
How could he not
'Cause it
like
sucked
You're the
ass.
Band? You're the Band was incredible. It was.
Oh, I thought you meant the book. I thought you meant the story.
Based on
Felix
the
Shark.
books I've read so far, I have a feeling I disagree with you.
So I think that, Scott's always like, everything's canon, because he doesn't know the difference between canon and continuity. So I think that the scrapped stories aren't even canon. Like, just literally don't even look at them. Don't even look at them.
What happens in them that makes them so broken from the canon?
Well, Mike appearing in, was it You're the Band? Like, that's, I think, a big one. I don't know about Felix
does
Shark.
that make it
Besides, because I know
like,
that
out of continuity, fine, but like fully non-canon, like it can't even happen in the Fazbear Frights continuity. What's breaking there?
Like, it can't even happen in an alternate universe because it's just so different. And I think that Scott kind of is like, as a very, he likes telling stories. He's a very religious man, very like literature focused. I think that he just didn't want to step on Tolkien's toes, and so he didn't want to publish Felix the Shark. Have it canon.
All right, please, can we just go to Tails? This is too much.
Oh, let's go to mid. All right.
Okay, so here's the thing. Now, I'll be honest. Tails, I am more than willing to accept is canon. I actually don't think it's that bad. Stitchline, it makes me annoyed sometimes. But if Scott one day was like, guys, Tails was actually canon, I'd be like, okay, well, all right. But here's the thing.
I would
is that the remnant pendant is in that, which would mean that the remnant pendant has to be a separate remnant pendant that's parallel to the alternate remnant pendant from Frights.
That's not necessarily true, because we do have Return to the Pit, which implies that Eleanor does exist, which doesn't mean that Stitchline has to happen. It just means that an alternate version of Stitchline has to happen.
That too, yeah.
The Ella doll. There's an Ella doll in Silver Eyes that's just a little toy made by Henry for his daughter only. But then in Frights, there's like a mass-produced Ella alarm clock. So the same like object can exist across continuity, so maybe it's the same pendant. Yeah. Also, I didn't read it yet, but Unwithered is very much in the camp that like it's just not the same pendant. It's just clearly not the same story. Everyone who's connecting these two stories is just, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he basically said like these stories have almost nothing in common. People are just seeing something that's not there.
Yeah, well, there is a remnant pendant in Frailty.
I just do find that to be such an interesting connection that quite literally the last thing ever said in the Fazbear Fright series, excluding the scrap story, is that Larson got his hands on the pendant and was told to do something with it because the fucking Taggart or Talbot didn't need it anymore. And so he quite literally had the pendant, and that's the end. Yeah.
So that I get. But that's the thing is that, let's see. Tails. Okay. Guys, the most important story to know if it's canon. B7, guys.
I had like 5 stories in mind of what you were going to say, and I was mad about all of them.
Is B7 canon?
I do wonder if anyone's against the idea of didophobia being in continuity. If there's something there that's messing them up with didophobia being in continuity.
I hate the idea that it's canon. I hate the story. If it is canon, I'll be upset because I think it's incredibly stupid and obviously not what Scott meant when he made FNAF 4. But having not read it, I can't point out like contradictions or anything. I just don't want it to be canon.
My thing with a lot of Tales is that it's so similar to what happens in the games in some way that making it not in continuity is just as weird as making it in continuity. Like didophobia, what is that supposed to tell you? Why does that book exist? Why is it set in an underground? You know what I mean?
The only reason people didn't want Tales to be in continuity, I think, is specifically because they wanted William Afton to be Burntrap. I don't think there's anything else within Tales that contradicts.
I think the reason they didn't want the books to be in canon is because they didn't like the books.
That is also a very popular
and quite frankly, can't blame them. The books mid at best most of the time.
You didn't like Under Construction?
No.
What?
Under Construct. You want me to go through the list of all
you
the
didn't like
books?
Animatronic Apocalypse?
Well, we'd be here for a while if he wants me to go through the list, but I could do it.
Go for it, bud.
Oh God. Okay. Pull up all. Let me pull up every tale.
Okay,
story.
I
One
put
sec.
up.
I wonder if there's
Tailbirds.
anyone out there that specifically has a really niche reason why they don't want it to be in continuity. Like they're like, I hate the idea of a Glamrock Ballora, so I will never accept Tales as in continuity specifically because of that monster
I
existing.
hate
I
Kira
want to
Breed
Glamrock
Risley.
Let's go through it. Frailty's good. Lally's game mid. Under construction trash. Help wanted good. Haps dog shit. B7 trash. Somnophobia the best story in Tales. Pressure
It's this
mid.
kid doing drugs and gets his face
I don't
eaten.
know how to pronounce this word, but it's bad.
Pleathrophobia.
Submechanophobia. I forget what that one was.
I've
so it was probably
fallen
bad.
asleep every single time I try. It could be like 2 PM, and I'll try listening to Submechanophobia, and I'm out.
Yeah.
I can't.
Side-
Electronic Apocalypse. I think that's what drugs taste like.
Holy shit.
GGY kind of mid. Storyteller kind of mid.
We'll come back to
Bobby Dot
GGY.
Part
We'll come
2,
back to GGY.
Very mid. And that's all that's for the most part all I've read. The
All right,
Mimic was
anyway.
one of the good stories. and all the
Mimic!
epilogues were mid.
GGY, that's what I mean though. That shit is so close to what actually like must happen that having it be not in the games is just like why?
That's why I
Yeah,
think it's so stupid.
it's
why
like-
why does Scott choose sometimes to use in
The
continuity
game characters, yeah,
and
game
just
characters.
randomly-
Like why wasn't the kid named Gregory actually named like John or some shit?
George.
And
Exactly.
Yeah, and he just did the same shit with a different name, like Andrew. That's what I mean. Like
I think
it's like
there's clearly a bias here. Why is it specifically Afton and these certain characters that get to exist in all continuities, but not specific other characters?
he's an anchor
You
being.
gotta have Afton, otherwise, like, how are you even gonna call it like a FNAF game? Book, not game. sorry.
True.
Like, he was kind of like everyone's favorite. Well, okay, not anymore, but
Yeah.
I thought Talbert was a pretty good intake.
that's-
Oh wait,
this is what we're
wrong
doing
story.
now, huh?
Wrong story.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. GGY. What is that supposed to tell you besides, hey, Gregory's under the control of the Mimic, and he'd be breaking the rules and shit. And he
it's
was,
supposed to tell you
and he
that
was
HRY
patient
was
46.
Henry's name when he beat arcade games.
Yo. That's
Yo.
facts.
Real.
Emily is spelled
did
with
I-
a Y. Those are his initials actually. It's
Mm.
Wait a minute.
Henry Roken Emily with a Y.
And then we get into this
Why
problem.
does GGY, HRY, Gregory Henry there's a connection there. There's a
No, there's-
connection.
Yes,
there
there is.
is.
I just made it in my fanfic.
Canon now.
Yeah, but that's the problem though.
Is
is 'cause
Gregory Yemily?
with the Mimic game that's coming out, the Mimic game, what
That's
they
a yellow
tell
Emily,
you,
by the way.
what they
Like,
tell
yeah,
you in the
no.
trailer is so much different than what actually happens, like in that we know of happens in the game. Because Edwin did not make Fazbear Entertainment shouldn't even know that the Mimic
Are you
exists.
taking
Yeah,
Fazbear
that's the weird
Entertainment's
thing.
word as
Well,
So,
are they
here's the
omnipotent?
question.
How do they know what the Mimic is?
Yeah, how do they know what the Mimic is?
They should just know. All they
first
should know is people go
We've
there
had
and they
multiple
die
teams go there.
Yeah,
They've
that
had
died
multiple
and
teams.
Yeah,
left
but
their
that's the
recordings
question.
on premises. They died and left the
how did they
recordings
get
on the
message
site.
back?
How do they know?
That's
Fazbear,
like the
help
whole
us.
point
The
of
Mimic
like the
is
second
coming.
half of the Mimic story is that like when they got there, they didn't even know that a team went there in the first place.
Yeah.
Like they're
Yeah.
like, wait, a team went here like a month ago? What the fuck is this about?
Did they
And then
send
they died, so
Mimic
they didn't get
scouter
the message
drones?
anywhere.
They sent Mimic scouter drones scanning for mimics. Mimic located.
My name is Edwin.
Like
Maybe-
by the time of Secret of the Mimic, Fazbear Entertainment should have no
idea what the Mimic
the hell
is.
the Mimic is.
Maybe they just asked him. Maybe they
I-
called up Edwin and said, "Hey, I've
The
sent
guy
two
who's been
teams
missing for like 4 months.
I think there's ways to write around that. I don't think that that's a big deal, but from what I've heard from other YouTubers, because again, I haven't read the Mimic line, but from what I've heard from like ID's Fantasy is like it's the bigger problem is just what the factory looks like.
That's big.
The
That's a
fact that
big
it's
one
a-
too. Yeah.
It's a costume manner, whereas in the book he specifically works on the exoskeletons and not the costumes themselves.
Yeah.
The fact that like it's
The
a big
way-
factory and not a rundown shoelace factory,
Yeah.
like there's just a lot of differences.
I have a
and
full
for my-
audiobook, guys. Ha, ha, ha. And based on that full audiobook, link in the description. Ha. He basically.
I'm not
it's-
gonna lie to you, TB. I almost listened to your audiobook when I was gonna read the Mimic, and then I realized I did not have the patience to sit there for 2 hours.
Put it on 2 times speed,
Yeah.
bro. Anyway,
I didn't have patience for 1 hour either.
so he basically, it's described as he lives in a giant unfinished basement. Is essentially what it looks like. And so that's not at all what it looks like in the game.
The only thing that's throwing me off is that it was good there for a second because they specifically referred to the warehouse as a warehouse, separating it from a factory. A warehouse is just what stores things. A factory is where things are built. They're fairly clearly two different locations. But then everyone's favorite little theorist, Stick, came and mentioned of, hey, they're building things in this warehouse. So therefore, this warehouse is also technically a factory. So that's where the biggest issue is, because if this is a factory and a warehouse, then that probably means it is Edwin's factory. And if it's Edwin's factory, there's clearly some differences here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Who the fuck is Stick?
You don't.
Twitter will explode. Rally.
I've never heard of this person. Who is that?
He doesn't have a very big YouTube
I have no
channel.
idea what you're talking about.
No, I know who he is. He doesn't have a huge YouTube channel, but he's on Twitter a lot and like very on top of things.
Yeah, that means nothing to me.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I know who you are, Stick.
That doesn't mean shit.
I know who you are, Stick. Don't worry, man. We're good. All right.
Stick.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. And in the book, Edwin makes all his shit at like a single work table. And then in this factory, you have like rooms full of like Shar-Pays and posters of Fredbear's Family Diner. Edwin doesn't give a shit about Fredbear's Family Diner. Why does he have posters?
Who wants to play a video game that's a single large unfinished basement with a table in it? That sounds so bad.
Maybe you should have set your story somewhere else then. Maybe you should have.
I think a lot of these changes are happening just because of what's it called? A lot of these changes are just happening because like they need it to be a game now.
Yeah,
it's
which
like,
is why
they have to adapt this into being a video. Like that's why Into the Pit game is so different.
So mid.
Yes,
why
I'm full Tales adaptation.
Just make
Tales
new
adaptation
stories.
is the best theory.
Game pisses me off so much because it goes against both. Because we have now Return to the Pit. So what version is in continuity? Because it contains multiple Easter eggs that say that, hey, the Bite of 83 happened in the Into the Pit game timeline. Hey, you can hear William spring locking. You can hear fucking like Mangle and all kinds of stuff thanks to the phone system.
You can call your mom and it's Eleanor.
There's a lot of connections that take pieces from Frights and put them inside of a story that seems like it should be in the game's continuity. And then Return to the Pit shows up and it's like, yeah, none of that shit. No, it's not canon. You thought we would give you a canon version of Into the Pit? Never.
You can play a gumball machine.
Candy. Yeah, I don't think that there can be a canon version of Into the Pit because Into the Pit requires things that aren't canon, like time travel.
The one where Oswald gets shot.
And 6 seconds and 5 and people dying in the open restaurant and Jeff's. I disagree. I think Return to the Pit Return to the Pit just confirms that it is time travel.
The original story is definitely not. The original story is not time travel.
The Return to the Pit just says that he never left the pit because Oswald never leaves the pit. He's always stuck in that dimension forever.
But it was all the dream endings are bad.
There's nothing backing up that, the endings where he's stuck in the pit, he's just stuck in the pit world forever. Whereas it tells us that it's time travel.
Specifically say that Gabrielle's dad is not Chip or Mike, I can't remember which one it was, in a different version of the story. I'm fairly certain that it clarifies that she has two different fathers.
She's a different last name in the game, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, doesn't she say that her dad was like a Fazbear technician and that's why he had the journal? Or was that like her
grandpa?
Yeah, but then she also goes like, in another timeline, maybe we could have met somewhere else. Like just straight up says that. It's like, wait a second.
That's also the most annoying thing about Into the Pit game is that it has multiple loop implications, and then the other two stories have no loop implications. Yeah. So then why is Into the Pit game the only one that has some sort of loop implication of, are you sure you want to go back through that door? You saw what happened last time.
Because that's just a common joke that video games tell. It's just a joke. It's just a funny thing. It's a funny thing that video games do.
Yeah, Scott Cawthon does not do jokes.
Scott Cawthon hates jokes.
Scott Cawthon is God.
God.
He is the most serious man on earth.
God, Victor.
It is weird. I gotta make that a dono soundbite as well. The God victim
You
thing.
do.
No, it
You
is
need a
weird.
soundboard, bro.
It is weird that Scott like would even have Into the Pit made into a game and then have secret lore mini games in that game if it's not in the games. It's just so weird.
Well, I'm sure you guys watched the Doco interview, but he basically said that originally it started as a side project. It was only going to be released on SNES carts and was never going to be like available to the public. It was going to be like, hey, only 10,000 of these are being made. I hope you have an original working Super Nintendo. So I really don't think anything in the game was ever intended to like tell us anything.
Yeah, he's also
Fetch
very.
gonna wreck on stuff.
He
Is
also-
Fetch gonna
yeah.
clean it up? Say that Fetch is a canon game. Is Fetch gonna be canon?
Only if there's an extended scene in which Greg looks at the camera and goes, "I'm gay," and then he watches Brigadoon. If that happens, then yes, it's canon.
Okay. That sounds fair. That's that's a good compromise.
What are we saying? Isn't like him having a crush on a girl a big part of the story?
Yeah,
No,
you
I
clearly haven't watched my video, bro.
Not for a while. I put them on when I go to bed.
I want to sit down with Scott and tell him, not everything needs to have 10 billion different continuities. We could just have like 2. We could just have 2 and fit everything within those 2 continuities. 3, because the movie timeline.
Yeah.
Just have a book's continuity, a game's continuity, and a movie continuity, and not have to have a million different continuities for just because you
That would
wanted to
just be
change
too
things.
easy.
All right, should we talk about the interactive novels?
The week before.
I only
Uh,
read the week before.
before Return to the
It's the
You guys don't know about Very Informative Pig?
Yeah, I know about Very Informative Pig.
Yeah, he's very
You know what? That one
Informative,
actually wasn't
actually.
that bad. It's just
No,
short.
VIP was pretty good.
That one's hard to say if it's canon though, because the Pizzaplex is different in that, right?
There's a Monty like maze
Yeah.
that like, and they're like, we're gonna tear this down and we're gonna make it a golf course soon. It's like, okay.
Oh, well. Yeah, if any of the series as a whole are games canon, I think the interactive novels are most likely to be games canon. Because of
So
the way
you
Return
think
to the Pit
Return
is
to
not
the
in my
Pit is?
fiction.
I just said I think it's the most likely to be games canon. I think like the week before can fit in there pretty nicely with the canon ending.
Yeah.
They disagreed. Did you
Does
say,
anyone not think the week before is canon?
Oh, I thought you said no. I thought you were like, no.
No, I said Return to the Pit isn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean that shit was kind of insane.
I mean, yeah, I think most of like the week before is canon, but I mean, it has the canon like phone guy dies in there. Obviously, not everything is in it because like night 5 isn't supposed to happen.
I like the implication that
It's like a what
there
if.
really is a secret
Yeah, the what
Yellow
if.
Rabbit Avengers, but you just never see them in the canon route, but they do exist in the canon route. You just don't run into
I'll
them.
find you.
It's hilarious.
But then where do they go? Because like even if Oswald never shows up, they're still gonna go with their guns to Freddy's that night. But if you don't do that route, they never show up. So like, how does that even happen? And then Pit Trap is their leader. Like, what does that mean? Is his dad their leader? Why is Pit Trap there? Who
Yeah,
is Pit
no,
Trap?
no,
What's
his-
even going
That's-
on?
Because it's the loop.
It's a non-canon ending.
Okay, that's fair.
Because it's the loop, and his son went missing 90 trillion
You say it's a
years
non-canon
ago,
ending.
and then
It's
they
a
had to
non-canon
find-
1/3 of the book. 1/3 of that book is just different paths you can take within the Avengers
and they
you know,
were all
storyline,
ass.
and they're all bad endings.
They all
It
suck.
And
was-
it's the
Scott
best
was being
one
silly.
version.
And it is the best part of the book.
Well, anyway, any thoughts on the
Uh,
interactive novels besides Return to the Pit?
So in VIP, there's a room you can get locked in if you don't listen to VIP, and there's like decomposing children skeletons in there. I think there's like 3 of them or something.
Yeah.
So that could be the kids in the missing newspaper in Security Breach. Maybe they're just like locking them in the room, which means VIP is in on it. VIP is working with Vanny. Maybe Vanny is, Vanny Important Pig, something like that. I don't know. So is VIP the storyteller, the
Don't know about
mimic?
that one,
Who
though.
knows? Who knows what's going on here?
I think
But I
everything in
think
that
that it-
place has got mimicking properties.
Yes, I also think
Yeah,
that.
pretty much.
But I see no reason why
VIP,
VIP
like,
can't be canon.
Have
think it
lots
fits
of details that like line up with like Helby.
They're
Helpy
both cringe.
from Ruin, from Ruin, like because we don't even see him in Security Breach.
Sure.
I don't understand the question.
I love this lineup. I love this panel.
Just you know,
Or-
they just feel. Is VIP a Michael Afton parallel? Is
What
he
are we
standing for Michael?
saying?
What?
VIP dies at the end of the
Okay.
story. They unplug him forever, and there is no more VIPs after the story to do the
VIP
correct
Michael?
route.
So he is.
What if he pulled Turbo?
He switched games.
And he shatters himself into different
He
games.
switched games.
The Arcade Theory 2.
Oh my god, that's how Eleanor's coming to the game. She's going to turbo her way into continuity.
Oh my
Scott
goodness.
Cawthon thought he could write me out of the story.
Well then, I
No.
guess now's the time to say that I have heard reports from the ether that
no.
Escape the Pizzaplex was mid.
I heard nothing
No.
happened in it.
I heard
I
they
heard
they,
Vince
The,
does not
the
show up.
regent, the reagent, whatever that thing is.
they the main villain of the book is a robot with Lysol cleaning spray.
Yeah. Like the thing I've heard about the book more than anything is that nothing fucking happens in it. and
Yeah,
it's
it
just kinda
answers nothing
pointless.
about GGY. It answers nothing about security breach. It
Okay,
answers nothing about
It's
ruin.
time to coming home this shit. She never mentioned the reagent inside of Ruin. If it's really in continuity, why didn't she mention reagent?
Maybe she actually wasn't that scared of a fucking Lysol bot.
Because Scott
Maybe
makes
she
up
forgot
everything
about
as he
it.
goes on. The real answer to everything is that Scott makes up everything as he
Why
goes
was that
along.
why was that the main antagonist of the book?
Because he couldn't think of anything better.
I could.
You-
There's a
Grubbing
little
bubbles.
character. She's a bit you know niche. Not a lot of people know her. Vanny. She got like 2 seconds of screen time, and everyone wanted her to be the main antagonist.
Yeah, because Vanny was at least like Vanny is an interesting concept. At the
Yeah,
very
yeah.
least.
Vanny's
I
not
just
a
love-
There
Lysol
are
robot.
very few things in FNAF that have interesting concepts. Vanny's
I-
one of the few.
You gotta
She
love
gets nothing.
Scott. Scott in his. I really like Vanny as a character, and I think we're gonna see her soon.
Yeah.
Doesn't show up.
Security breach 2, probably. Security breach 2.
Guys, I don't think Scott's inviting any of you guys to the movie premiere. You guys are just dragging his name to the
No, I
dirt
said
every podcast.
the
I
Silmarillion
have
is
never said
nothing.
anything. Yeah, I've never said anything besides Scott being the greatest writer on earth.
The Silmarillion's terrible.
Silmarillion.
Felix the Shark is better than
Scott, I'll
Silmarillion.
be more honest with you than any of these posers.
Unlike
Invite
T-Dreads.
me. We'll have a real talk. We'll be men.
Unlike T-Dreads, I liked the first movie.
True, I thought the
You
first
didn't like
movie
the
was.
first
I
movie?
thought it was ass.
Yeah, the ending was really bad. Like the first 2/3 of it were good, and then you get to the last act. I'm like, this is kind of
Okay, it wasn't ass. It was just like it was mid. It was like, oh, that was a movie.
No, I think the ending was bad.
Well, I
Geezer,
think it was
that
great.
post-
Scott, you
stop
should
sending-
text me.
Stop sending that post.
This
Stop
is why
sending
I'm
that.
never being invited to anything
not
involving Scott Cawthon.
She's just sharing this like fake post of Scott
What do you
Cawthon
mean
talking about the
fake?
crying child's name.
What do you mean fake?
That's not fake. Scott himself
Anime
posted
dude
that
right there.
on Reddit.
His name is Garrett.
Right there.
You ever heard of Inspect Element?
Doesn't exist. It's fake.
Inspect the truth of the matter. Crying child's name is Garrett,
It says right there at the bottom, crying child's name is Garrett.
and it says right there at the top, anim dude Scott Cawthon.
You can't fake this stuff, dude.
It's unfakeable.
I don't think Scott has ever even learned that we have the capability of hitting F12 and opening the inspect element menu.
He's like, shit,
there's
when did I
no
write
hoax
this? When
before.
did I write this?
Scott has never had a hoax before, which is
Scott-
why this is real.
Scott has never expected us to know that key exists. Nothing has ever been hidden in the source code of any of his websites, nothing like that.
So in conclusion, are the books canon to the games? The answer is
Well-
that it doesn't actually matter.
It
No, it
doesn't
doesn't.
make a goddamn difference.
I have an
I believe-
interesting.
I have a very uncommon opinion
We'll
on
go
that.
right to left. We'll go right
think,
to left. Shizu, go.
I
Right
think
to
we
left. What are
should
you looking
all
at right now?
remove UCN from the game's continuity and say that none
Yo,
of the books are
skip 'em.
canon and UC.
I have you guys all laid out right to left of my screen and like the little like graphic. I
We're
have.
top to bottom. Oh my god.
Yeah, we're top to bottom.
Solutions.
We can't see that.
Is Shizu on the bottom or am I on the bottom?
Yes.
You're on the bottom.
Oh, you're on the
Oh.
bottom. Then
You are on the bottom.
Cringe. All right, whatever. I guess Caesar, were you done or are you still?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, give me.
I'm done.
Or the books canon into the games. Help!
All right. Well. I just want to bring up a quote that I found. All right. Now, some people think that maybe Frights is canon and Tales isn't. Maybe Frights is Tales is being adapted to the games and Frights isn't canon. All these different combinations. I want to read you guys a quote from Tales from the Pizzaplex, and let's see if maybe we can apply this to the books themselves.
Cryo, don't say it. Cryo.
This is a quote from the storyteller, and it's Mr. Burroughs talking, and he says, "Most of the Fazbear Entertainment stories, the ones that are the most popular, share similar elements. I think it's quite likely that these elements and a series of pre-programmed options could be used in concert to come up with new randomly generated story. Think of it like a smorgasbord. An average buffet probably has 40 or 50 dishes. Most of those are made from the same 10 to 15 or so foods. We can create a virtually endless variety of meals from those few ingredients. We'd use the same principle to create a computer program that would combine various tropes and characters to come up with an endless variety of stories. We would call that program the Storyteller." And so, my friends, I just think that if Tales are canon, it's just proving that Frights were AI stories written by the Mimic. I rest my case.
Holy
10 out of
man.
10, no notes. Holy peak. 10 out of 10, no notes.
Send me that, by the way. Send me that quote. I'm gonna use that for my Scott
Yeah, I'm
Cawthon
gonna
video.
use that in every video from now on.
For my Scott Cawthon, the greatest writer video.
You know where I got that quote from?
Where?
It's in a book. So Withered Circle, biggest hater of Frights fiction, sent me that to read for the video that he put out as we were recording this episode. So he thought that was a very important quote to talk about. And he also thinks that Frights fiction isn't canon. And I think that quote is the best argument there is for Frights fiction.
Way to spoil my next FNAF video essay, FNAF and AI.
I was told, Candy Bunny, that you have loser opinions on books. I don't even know what that means.
It means I have loser opinions on books, but it's okay because I haven't checked my Twitter in 2 months, so nobody's gonna
What
send
would
me.
be considered a loser opinion?
Yeah, loser opinion.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Novels games exists.
I don't believe in books games. I believe in games books. No,
Peak. Peak.
Okay. I personally think that there is going to be an endless debate forevermore until the end of time about whether or not the books are in continuity or not. Yep, I don't think Scott will say it like he ever said it with his Silver Eyes, and the only way that the debate will end is when the FNAF franchise is dead, or if Scott says it. And up until the moment where Scott says it or the FNAF franchise is dead, I am just gonna pick and choose which stories I want to use as supporting evidence for my fanfictions. Because, the Silver Eyes, some of the elements are going to be in there and some of them aren't. And I am a FNAF theorist, which means that every time a new game comes out, I make content by rewriting my old theories and disguising them as new ones. And so I don't mind if I'm wrong until the next game comes out. If I said that something that was in the books is in the games and it ends up not being there, yeah. So. I just
You've ever said.
I just take what I want from them and leave the rest. Yeah.
All right, Cryonide. I know you love the books. I know you love them.
As much as I hate almost every single story I've read, because they're almost all garbage, and I'll fight on that hill until the day that I die. Ever since ever since really Monty being in 1979, which thank God we didn't talk about that because that pisses me off. We are getting more and more hints that, hey, maybe Andrew is the vengeful spirit. And if we're getting more of those,
Cassidy.
then at a certain point, maybe Tales is just canon. Or at least some version of Tales. Here's my biggest problem. Everyone will tell you every Tales story is canon, and then it's read Tales, and 90% of the books are trash, and then the important ones are decent, but then you have to get through absolute dog shit to get to those, and that pisses me off. TLDR, make Mimic Line a thing.
Make Andrew
and
Line
disregard
a thing.
most of Tales.
Make Andrew Line a thing.
Make Andrew Line a thing. Make Mimic Line a thing and disregard most of these Tales books. Someone just make a list of the ones that are actually important, and don't tell me all of them are. Or I'm
that
gonna
sounds an
show up
awful
at your
lot like
house.
what Stitch Line is supposed to be. Cryo.
Yes. Yes. Do that with Tales, so I don't have to read all of these dog shit stories ever again.
All right. Does anyone else have any closing comments?
I do. To build off of what Candy was saying, I feel like it would be fairly appropriate from a theorist perspective if we treated all of these novellas similar to the way that people treat the Ultimate Guide. The Ultimate Guide and the Character Encyclopedia and stuff, they contain continuity errors that are wrong sometimes. But that does not always mean that the evidence inside of them cannot be used for other places. Whether someone wants to use that as an in-continuity piece of evidence, such as the Silver Eyes, it said that Charlie died at Fredbear's. I think it's pretty valid to say that that could possibly tell us what happens in the games. Then that same thing should be applied to basically all of the books, where it's taken with a little bit of a grain of salt. If the games contradict something that's stated within them, we should take the games at full value. But if someone wants to take pieces from the books and say that, hey, maybe this is what happened, that's completely valid.
Woohoo.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. All right, chat. You should subscribe to me and to this guy and to this girl and to this guy and to this guy. Okay? And we're going to see you all next time. Buy my shit. Bye.